Good morning.
Good morning, Jenny White. Look at you with you got the black background, the black shirt. You just see the face and the hair, the white hair.
Jenny the old lady. You know what's funny is that all the men in my life see it as white, and nobody has noticed except for girls that I actually dyed it blonde.
Hey, well, my youngest, he's always like, Mike, he's like, Dad, are you on with the gray hair? I'm like, yeah, I'm on.
You sound like Gandalf.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'm Jenny the Gray, like Gandalf the Gray. Yeah, no, it was very funny because I dyed it because it's just getting so white and I'm getting so old, and I'm kind of like, I just would prefer that it not be quite that white anymore. So I just made it like a really light blonde, and nobody, not one single man, Coleman, not Sam, not Dave, nobody noticed. And then Betty comes home from the lake and goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you colored your hair." I'm like, this is the reason why we have girls. We girls have girls because they're the only ones that pay attention to anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, she got like maximum stars in my book for that.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story real quick. Lauren did her hair the other day, and before she was gonna get cleaned up and wash her hair, and we were gonna go to the store, and you could still see just barely the little line up there from where he put the color in. So anyway, we're going to the store, and she's like, "I don't want to go to the store. Look at, the way I look." And I said, "Let's just go." I said, "No one even cares." So anyway, we go in, and she's talking to like the very first girl that we usually talk to at the store, and she's like, "Yeah, Michael said no one's gonna notice anything." She's like, "Oh yeah, you can see that definitely," and so Lauren was, and then she goes, "Of course, guys are never gonna notice or pay attention to anything like that."
She said that to Lauren?
Yeah, well, because Lauren asked, Lauren's like, no. She goes, "Oh yeah, I can." She goes, "Well, that's why you have girls." That's like exactly what you just said is what she's told my wife.
But it's true because guys just do not pay any attention to that. I mean, honestly, I could wear the same thing every day for like 2 weeks and Dave wouldn't even notice. He'd just be like, "Good morning, how's it going?" He just wouldn't even faze him. So yeah, I don't know what it is, but I mean, the dudes, y'all don't pay any attention. I mean, I'm sorry. I hate to say that.
We're walking down the aisle there, and I told her, I said, "Well, what?" I said, "What's it matter?" I said, "You're already married. What, you're trying to attract somebody else or something? What's it even matter if I don't care?"
Now that's another thing that if you say to a girl, you're lucky you don't get throat punched. Well, because I want to look nice. I mean, what are you talking about?
Don't give her any ideas.
Hey, Lauren, just a karate chop everyone.
She might do it.
We have got a guest on this morning, and we don't want to take too long because unfortunately we're not going to have our usual 2-hour podcast because all three of us are a little constrained today by time. So we're going to have to jump right into it and get going this morning. So we have, let's see, he's been a former senator. He has run for 2 offices, I think, and he has been a pastor and a fitness guy. I mean, he's just your all around dude.
Yeah.
And so now he's running for governor. Oh, and he's been a radio show host. So we've got that too. And so we've got Jake on this morning. So how are you this morning, Jake? Are you there? Oh, we can't hear you.
I wonder if he's muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Try unmuting your mic. Is your mic muted? Uh-oh. What happened? You were fine. Oh, there it is muted. I can see it. Unmute it. I can't unmute it. You have to unmute it.
I can't unmute it either.
Yeah, do it at the bottom. Nope.
Well,
didn't unmute.
There it goes. I'll figure out technology. So good morning.
There we go. Now we got it. Okay, we're all good now. All right. So what were you saying about analogies?
Me? I was actually just saying, did you do something different with your hair?
Yeah, right. R. Yes. Yeah. But you know, when you're on this thing, the lighting is so crazy. Oh, my dogs are going nuts. And it's just my husband outside watering. And so they're going crazy. Sorry about that. So how is everything? Let's start this. How is everything going, Jake? How's life treating you?
Life is amazing. God is good. We are full bore in the middle of this campaign. It's kind of just kicking off, but you know, as most people know by now, I left the radio station. So I was on the Jake Merrick show, hosting the Jake Merrick show on 96.9 FM for the last 2.5 years. And it was just a great opportunity and experience. And we came to a place where with this campaign, people were wondering, are you in or are you out? And the agreement with the station was that when I became a legally qualified candidate, then I would step away from the show so as not to expose the station to a potential lawsuit. For FCC guidelines say that, you know, candidates could sue for equal time, and they wanted to avoid any potential lawsuits. So I agreed, when I become a legally qualified candidate, I'll step away. And I just came to a place with the campaign that I knew that I needed to go all in and let everyone else know I'm fully committed to this. So fortunately, unfortunately, it's kind of bittersweet. I stepped away from my show and, you know, went all in with the campaign. But now we're doing broadcasts like this, still staying in front of the public. I have my podcast I'm still doing and another show I ramped up. And but the more important thing is just getting face to face in front of people, which is what we did last night in Watonga. Went out to Watonga last night, met with a nice group of people, and just warmly received. We're feeling like wherever we go, the message is resonating with the people. People are ready for radical change, and they're ready for something different. And I think now's the time, with Trump at the helm at the federal level, pushing for more state power, then now's the time for someone to step in and run with that. And that's what we're eager to do.
You're muted, Jenny.
Yeah, and they finally quit barking. You know, I have to say, I was really disappointed about the radio show thing because, you know, I remember back in the day we had Mark. Oh gosh, I can't even think of his name. He was on Radio 1000. He unfortunately, he was there for a long time, and he was really pretty stalwart, you know, staunch conservative, and one of the only ones that was on radio at the time, and certainly locally. And Mark got he had been struggling with blood disease. I'm losing all my language today. And he passed away. And then we had Pat Campbell in Tulsa. And Pat was great because he was super staunch conservative, ex-military guy, you know, great.
Yeah.
He used to call me Jenny from the block, which always cracked me up. And he, you know, he got brain cancer and passed away. And you know, I just am like, and have you seen your show since you left?
I've not. I've heard,
Did
but
you
very different.
did you get any input at all? And
No,
did they even ask you or
no, not at all. I mean, it's completely the station's decision, and you know, I know it's a very different show, different format. You
yeah.
know, I it was so bittersweet for me as well, not only because there is a void there,
There is.
but I enjoyed it, and I loved
Yeah.
going to the station every
When you were
day.
good at it.
Well, thanks. It's you know, the thing I love the most is talking with people and asking questions, and I learned something every single day on the show. And you know, you come prepared for interviews, as you guys well know, but you know, I sit down with experts in fields and guests from all different spectrums, different areas of life, and you know, they're bringing revelation every single day. So I loved that, and it was just a fine tuning and a growing experience for me over the last 2.5 years, learning different areas of policy and how to communicate that. And so yeah, it was a tremendous experience. I hated to leave it, but knew that it's what was required for this season. So yeah.
Well, yeah, because that was another thing. Because I have, you know, I started out my career, my life in advertising because my dad had an advertising agency. So I, you know, I pretty much knew about that kind of thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, how is he going to run and still be on, you
Yeah.
know, because you can do a podcast. That's not the issue. I mean,
Right.
it's an FCC regulated
Right.
channel of any kind is what you have to worry about because the FCC rules are specific on that topic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So,
Mark
you know, I'm
Shannon, that was his name, Mark Shannon.
Mark
Does
Shannon.
anybody
Okay.
remember Mark Shannon? Anyway, he was big during the Tea Party years, very big
Yeah.
during the Tea Party years, and was one of the reasons we got so much done was because, you know, we had a conservative voice there, you know, and oh my gosh, and then the guy who came after him. After Mark died, another guy took his place. He worked at the Enid News Eagle, and he was at KTOK for a while, and he passed away. So maybe you were just stepping down, so you weren't didn't have to like leave the earth or something, because
It was a matter of
apparently only conservative radio hosts in Oklahoma don't make it or something. I don't
it's a
know.
matter of life and death. Had to
Yeah,
leave.
so weird when you really think about it. So yeah, I
Right.
was kind of disappointed about that because you have so many people who, you know, we've got podcasts out there
Yeah.
that are great. I mean, they're great podcasts and they're conservative, great podcasts, but people won't watch them because they're not the regular mainstream
Right.
radio or
Right.
mainstream news. And you just don't capture the same group with a podcast that you do, you know, with an
Yeah.
FCC, you know,
Well,
affiliated station.
one of the interesting things about that is it obviously appeals to a certain demographic, and so the younger generation, you know, I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's under 30 or 20 and under, but they stream everything and rarely
Yeah.
listen to radio. And so they have their Spotify set and or their downloads, they get in the car, automatically syncs. And I talked to so many that, you know,
Yeah.
not only did
True.
they not listen to my show, but they said, well, I never listen to radio. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's true. Well, let's see, you ran for state senate first, right? Or
Well, I ran for Congress. I ran for
Congress.
Congress first, yeah, in the race that Stephanie Bice eventually won. And that, of course, was a pushback. We had a Democrat in the seat, surprised everyone. And so there was a big push to get a Republican back in that seat. So the next election cycle, it was filled up, 9 candidates. I was one of those. And that was my first run. I entered at the deadline. So it left me 2 months left to campaign before the primary. And that was our big dive into politics, the huge learning curve, drinking from the fire hose, all of that kind of stuff. 2 months of just full immersion and learning basically from the ground up. I mean, I'd always been a casual voter and emphasized the importance of being involved politically, but I had no idea what that entailed. And I think that is the general public, people that are listening to this podcast and you guys and me, we understand the importance of the civic responsibility of getting involved in politics. But I would say the masses, the majority, do not. They're largely checked out. They're busy with soccer games and football games and social media and entertainment, and they pretty much catch the national headlines of what Trump said last, but that's kind of the extent of their involvement. And they'll show up at the presidential or the governor's elections, but that's about it. And that's kind of where I was at, I would say 6 years ago. We dove into
So what
this.
changed you? What changed you?
Well,
What made you wake up and say to yourself, because you didn't even start at like city council or school board. I mean, you
no,
went straight
exactly.
for Congress.
Right.
What made you do that?
Honestly, it was in my time of prayer. All I can say is all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, I had this strong burden to enter this race. And I had no idea how to explain that. My wife, who had said, I'm so glad God didn't call us to politics. She said, ministry's hard enough, because we'd been fully in ministry. It's like, ministry's hard enough. I'm so glad we're not in politics. And then suddenly and I told
Surprise!
I told my wife, I said, man, I feel like I'm supposed to run for office. And she kind of laughed and was like, go take a Pepto-Bismol or something and settle that stomach down. And no, she kind of just laughed it off. But then later she started waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety that I had missed the deadline to enter this race.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so then she was saying, what is going on? So all we can do, I know everybody says God calls them to run, but literally this was not on our radar. We suddenly had this desire, that not even desire, but this burden to get involved. And of course, people started saying, well, why don't you start smaller? Why don't you run for city council or school board or something like that? Get your feet wet. But it was just not the race. It was where God was pointing. So we entered the race with 2 months left, jumped in and learned a ton. But of course, I had moved recently to Stephanie Bice's district. And when she won that seat, I knew that God had used this first race to prepare me to run for her seat. So she had to vacate her state Senate seat. I ran in that special election and won that. And that was my entrance into office. And then, of course, there's a whole new learning curve involved in actually sitting in the seat, learning how to legislate and how to read and write bills and all of the above. So, I was in there for a relatively short time, just a year and a half. Filled up the remainder of her time, ran for re-election and lost that re-election, and then jumped on the radio, and now we're going for governor. So it's been amazing how quickly this whole thing has progressed.
It has. So, Mike, one of the questions I had for you too is, you've got I don't know if your House district is coming up, but I do know your Senate seat's coming up.
Yeah.
Why didn't you run for Senate in your district? I mean, we could sure use somebody like you in your spot.
Well, I moved about 2.5 years ago from Surrey Hills, North Yukon area, down here to Tuttle. That's where my wife was born and raised, and we moved back onto her family farm. And really, we just wanted to get our kids out in the country. We wanted to get some horses and cattle and move towards that homesteading life. And that's how I was raised. That's how my wife was raised. So we were just eager to get back out and raise our kids that way too. And so we moved out here with Senator Paxton. he was up for re-election about the same time. And everybody started saying, hey, are you moving back so you can challenge him? And I'm like, no, not at all. But now that it had been brought up, I saved all of my Jake for state Senate signs. Okay, so I had all of these boxes of state Senate signs just in case. I'm like, God, I mean, I'm not moving here to run against Lonnie, but if that's part of the plan, we're ready to go. And there was just no drive there. There was no interest. My heart was not in it. If I had jumped in that race, it would only be because it maybe made sense logically and people wanted me to do it, but I knew that was not the right reason to do it. So I did not run and challenge him then. I felt like I probably could have taken that seat, but I just didn't. I didn't feel it was right. Got my family settled, and then of course the governor's race is coming, and we need stronger conservatives, I believe, in the Senate, and that has been in the back of my mind too. But all I can say is that's just not in me. I there's nothing in me that wants that seat. I want conservative leadership in the state. I do want that, but it's just not my race. People ask me all the time, why governor? Well, for me, it really started about 13 years ago when we adopted our daughter out of DHS. And when we saw the rampant corruption in the system and the brokenness of Oklahoma families, it was really at that point we started praying for families across Oklahoma. And 77 counties, we learned that there were 77 counties, and we started praying over 77 counties. And my wife actually that same year bought me a cheap map of Oklahoma and framed it in a cheap frame. And she gave it to me for Christmas because I had developed such a burden for the state. So about 12 years ago, she gives me this gift as a Christmas present. And it was actually literally just this cheap atlas map. She actually pieced together the state of Oklahoma and put it in but I wept when I got it, because it meant so much to me, because we had been praying so intensely for Oklahoma and the families of Oklahoma. And this has not gone away. And when I talk about it coming from my heart, that's why we're in this race, is we want to see transformation across the state of Oklahoma. And all I can say is this seat is in my heart. The state, the vision for change across the state is in my heart, and that's why we're in it.
So we've got a couple of comments here that I want to throw up because
Yeah.
Dorn says we need immediate power granted down at the county level to regulate these new huge industrial complexes being constructed in our agricultural rural areas. Do you, I mean, you've moved out to an agricultural rural area. Are you seeing the same things that most of us who live here are seeing?
Oh, for sure. I mean, let me just say from the outset that this whole green energy push is motivated by the climate change agenda and the narrative that the world is on the verge of impending doom. If radical action is not taken, then the world is going to implode. The glaciers are going to melt. Sea levels are going to rise. The sun's going to get hotter. Like all the above. None of that's happened. There's no, I believe, solid scientific evidence that that's the truth. You have the masses on the other side of the scientific community countering that argument, saying it's fiction. It's not happening. It's typical cycles of the earth. Now, do I believe in protecting the environment? Absolutely. And when we look at the advances made in the oil and gas industry and with emissions and all of that, we've made tremendous improvements, better than ever before. So let me just say from the outset, I understand what's driving this green energy push. And I believe, along with Trump, that should go away. Now, I'm all about creating better, more efficient ways of producing energy. I love technology and advancements. My dad's an entrepreneur, an inventor. I was raised by an inventor who's always thinking about better ways of doing something. So if there's a better way to produce energy, let's do it. But let it be done for the sake of the industry and not for some other narrative or agenda. which I believe wholeheartedly that's what's driving the windmills and the solar farms and the carbon capture. So for those reasons, because I don't believe it's an efficient form of energy production, I don't think that we're actually using the energy here in the state that we're supposedly producing. In the meantime, we're violating property rights. We're actually doing more damage to the environment. I don't see any good reason to keep it going. So I would push for an immediate moratorium on all green energy projects day one. There's too many questions. There's too little regulation. We have solar farms that are stripping away prime agricultural land. And I believe there's a reason that they use the term farm, to go onto an agriculturally zoned area when they're actually an industrial complex. They're not zoned for that. There's no regulation there. So yeah, I want to see a moratorium on all these green energy projects. Hit pause. Let's hit pause. Get the questions answered. Get the regulations in place. And then let's see if it makes sense to lift that moratorium. But I have too many concerns. I know farmers and ranchers and landowners across the state have concerns. There was absolutely nothing done this last legislative session to provide any kind of setback or protection for property owners. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered that question. Now, does that answer that question that Dorn asked?
Oh, no. I mean, yeah, I just think if we don't have a governor, I mean, we need the anti-stit, in my view, at this point in time. Right. I mean, because our state has been open for business, and what we're doing is creating, well, let me just ask you that. I mean, in an open for business state, which is what we've seen Stitt do.
Yeah.
I mean, primarily, we have seen him give away taxpayer dollars to private businesses, many of whom are on the stock exchange, many of whom have private investors to handle that. What's the problem with that? I mean, we need to have kids in jobs, Jake. I mean, we shouldn't have Oklahoma kids moving to Texas to get a job.
Yeah. Well, people will move where there is freedom. We as people are naturally drawn to freedom. And that's why we're seeing this mass migration from California and Washington and all these crazy liberal states where there's heavy regulation because they want freedom. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, I want it to look like them being able to come here, open their business without regulation, and even though, we don't need to pay them to come. They're going to come because it's a free place where they can exercise the free market, offering great solutions to real problems and get paid for it. And then they get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. That's the beautiful free market that we need to unleash and allow to take off here in Oklahoma. There's no need to pay major corporations billions of dollars to come into Oklahoma with their left-wing ideologies that are going to influence. We talk about, I dealt with Panasonic when I was in the Senate. There was a major push to bring Panasonic to Oklahoma. Yeah. And there were just layers of problems with that deal. Number one, let's talk about NDAs that are signed months or years in advance. We don't need these NDAs. We don't need the government signing an NDA with a private entity. And then all of these backdoor deals were already set in place. They just needed to bring it to the legislature to check a box and say, hey, we've already got this done. We just need you guys to push it on through. Hey, we don't choose winners or losers, though. But you can't say anything about Panasonic on the Senate floor because we already signed an NDA. Talk about just layers of corruption there. So I voted against that all the way across. But I asked I think it was the CEO of Panasonic who stood before the state Senate, and we had a chance to ask him questions about the company. I asked him, where do you stand? Where does Panasonic stand with ESG, environmental social governance, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? And in his foreign accent, he said, oh, we love it. We are very strong with that. And I'm like, do you even know where you're at? You're in Oklahoma. Like, we are not on board with ESG and DEI. Yet the majority of senators and legislators voted to approve him to come and bring that ideology They're saying 4,000 jobs. They're going to hire 4,000 people. What I'm saying is they're going to influence 4,000 people, mandate DEI training on 4,000 people. How is that going to influence them and their families and that whole region of Oklahoma? So I bring that up, and other conservative senators say, well, that's just fear mongering. No, that's reality. And what I would rather do is prioritize local business owners, because you had local business owners in prior saying, what about us? You know, I mean, we would love to hire people. What about
Oh, but
4,000 other?
Google's giving the community so much money. Don't get me
Well,
started on that. So let me interrupt you just one second, because I want us to be really clear about this. So
yeah,
the other day, I heard you saying, about Oklahoma being, free and a free, free place. And I want to know, what's the difference between liberty and freedom, and how is Oklahoma free?
the difference between liberty and freedom, that's a good question. And how is Oklahoma free? Well, I'm not saying it entirely is free. I'm saying that's what I will hope it to be. What I'm saying is we shouldn't have to incentivize with extra tax incentives and tax dollars these major corporations to come here to the state to do business. What I want to do is reduce the tax burden and remove regulations on small businesses. That's, I believe, in the direction of freedom. That's a good taste of freedom whenever you remove that regulation and tax burden so that people can do business. I have a couple of small businesses, and I did pretty good last year. So I hit a new tax bracket. Well, guess what? All those profits went away. I paid them back to the government. So I had to pay, and I'm like, what's the incentive for me to do better if the government's just going to take my profits? So when I talk about freedom and the free market, that's what I'm talking about, is let people work and do their business without oppressive regulations, and then let them keep the fruits of their labor without burdensome taxes. I mean, and this is just like the ABCs of government. It's what started the revolution. We don't want taxation without representation. So, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about freedom.
So if you had to list like the top 3 things that made Oklahoma not free, what would they be to you?
Well, I'm not saying Oklahoma's not free. I'm saying I want to push for less regulation.
Well, I'm saying that's my perspective. I don't see Oklahoma as being a free place. I'm sorry. I'm not on board with the freedom train there. But what are the 3 things that you think are the top 3 things that let's say regulate freedom then?
Okay. Well, okay. So here's a few things. First of all, we see the OTA can decide they're going to build a turnpike and just take your land without legislative oversight. They can choose to raise tolls and charge you more money to go down the highway without any legislative oversight, meaning we, the people, have no say in that. So yeah, that is stripping away freedom. The Department of
I know this is a shock, but there's somebody named Amy Serrato on who said no more turnpikes.
Really? Who's this Amy girl? I'm with you, Amy. I'm with you.
So we got property rights.
Yeah, but before you tell Jake what you're specifically looking for, I want to chime in with that after he's done answering.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just bring up this other area where the government can unilaterally come in and destroy your life with the Department of Human Services. It needs massive reform. It's a strong priority for me. We adopted out of DHS. We saw the systemic corruption. And I don't think that the government can solve the root issue, which is the brokenness of families across the state. Okay. But they should not have the authority to come in and simply remove a child because a caseworker says, I don't really think that's a safe environment. There are situations where the child needs to be removed. but there are many where they do not need to be removed. And so we've got to have a better system there to determine what the situation is. We need to have more cross collaboration with law enforcement and things like that, other agencies. But this is just one area. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that, where DHS, Child Protective Services, could come in and just take your family because they decide to. And then you may never see that child again. We're seeing this with many families across the state. So whether it's the Turnpike deciding they're just going to railroad through your property, or DHS deciding they're just going to take your children, you know, you're going to have a land assessor come in and determine, I think your property's worth this. So now you have to pay more taxes because I think that this is what your property's worth. Once again, I mean, I think that's extreme overreach. I think that I want to end property taxes in Oklahoma. I think we should truly own the land. I think that it's absolute theft for the government to take forcefully something you own.
Well, we don't
So-
have to think about it. It's a constitutionally protected item. So
Yep.
we don't even have to think. It's not even,
Well-
I think. I mean, it's like it is a constitutionally protected item
100%.
that ensures our liberty. And yet nobody in Oklahoma in any form of government at the top is interested in following the Constitution. So
Well, and two,
there is
at
that.
the same time, there is provision in our state constitution for that ad valorem tax. And we
For
have to,
ad valorem, yes, but
Yeah.
not for income tax.
not income tax, no, but I want to see the property tax done away with, which requires a constitutional change in the state. And so, I believe we need to make that adjustment in the state of Oklahoma, so that you can truly own your property once you pay for it. But I
So
believe
Michael, did you had something?
Well, no, Jake just hit it. I think your number one, Jenny, is property tax. I mean, we should own our property outright, free and clear. We shouldn't have income tax here. But I mean, think about it, Jake. Like, as governor, if we abolish those things and we actually, advertise the state as, hey, you come to Oklahoma, you actually own your land. You come to Oklahoma, you don't pay income tax. I mean, rather than giving away all these tax benefits, all these tax incentives, all these corporations, things like that, you're going to attract a mass amount of people just wanting
100%.
that. Like what you said, the freedom, people want freedom. People from all over the country would pack up and move and come here and contribute to this state because they actually own and keep what they have.
100%, Michael. And you'll do away with these horrible deals like we saw with Canoe and the attempts of the government to prop up corporations that really had no chance in the beginning, but the government is propping them up with our money. They're forcibly taking our money to prop up other corporations. That's wrong. So I want to end the private property, or the public private partnerships there, and the corporate welfare, and simply remove the burdens on everyday Oklahomans so they can open up their own businesses and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Like you said, Michael, people will flock to Oklahoma to do that, for that opportunity. I mean, in the same way, people come from around the world to America for a taste of freedom. I think within America, people would flock to Oklahoma for that greater degree of freedom that we would offer them.
I want to point out something, because I asked you a question. I think we kind of didn't get there.
Okay.
But Earl's daughter made a comment that she and I are very copacetic. Liberty is not freedom. Liberty, this is why when we started this Liberty Oklahoma conference, in Liberty Oklahoma, it's about liberty. It's not about freedom, because I'm free. I don't have a cop on my right shoulder watching everything that I do. We don't yet have drones flying around in the sky, keeping track of wherever we are. So I'm basically free to do what I want, but I don't have the liberty that goes along with that freedom, because if I want to start a business, I'm stuck with taxes. If I want to to go get a new car. I'm stuck with a bunch of taxes, and then I have to have a car tag, and I mean, the problem is there is a big difference between liberty and freedom, and we need to have liberty. Freedom is meh. I mean, but liberty is what we need to have, because liberty is the absence of anything that would affect our ability to be free and make our own money and make our own way.
I love it.
And
so good, that distinction there. I mean, I've got my give me liberty or give me death mug, and so now I'm going to drink it with a greater awareness now. But you're right. I mean, you could say that a prisoner is free to wear his clothes and move about and eat, but they aren't experiencing true liberty.
They have no liberty.
It's so good.
Yeah. So it's really crony capitalist welfare is how you get corporations that come in and bleed your resources dry, and then they ask for more or they threaten to leave. I mean, it's a real issue. And Sarah says the turnpike bonds are held by a majority of Middle Eastern companies, not even held from United States company. And that Amy Serrato girl says, I say that, but she's really Dr. Serrato. She actually is
expert,
an eminent professor at OU. Eminent domain reform, Turnpike Enabling Act reform, transparency and accountability. And I think that's, you mean we doge the state. We're not free when corporate or overlords mandate health actions and social behavior on their workers. And I think that's another really good when you were in the middle of that, no masks, no vaccine. I mean, no eminent domain. There are so many predatory companies here desperately searching for land. I get contacted all the time. What would it take for you to sell? Do you want to sell? Hey, I'll buy your land. I mean, some of this has got to, getting rid of public-private partnerships. So many people. Okay, now here's a question from Terry. What are your plans to finance your campaign?
Well, it's easy. I'm taking individual donations from Oklahomans. I'm not taking donations from PACs or corporate interests. I'm not taking any of the big money that the other campaigns are relying on. Now, that puts the big question mark out there, like, how do you compete with millions of dollars? Well, you do it with a great ground effort. You do it with numbers on the ground, with more volunteers. And I believe this message of liberty that we're talking about is the message that resonates in the hearts and minds of people. And so everywhere I go, when I'm talking about this, about returning power to the people, removing the tax burden, the regulations, people are saying, what can I do? Let's get on board. Let's go with it. And so we have tremendous confidence in the people of Oklahoma that this message resonates with. We're not going to need millions of dollars for this campaign, but we will need some money, and we're going to get that from individual donations. And I say this all the time. When I'm elected, I will not be obligated to big industry or any of these organizations that helped me get elected, because I didn't. I will be only obligated to God and the people of Oklahoma. And that is going to be the primary difference. So, that question is easy to answer, Terry, it's from the people of Oklahoma who are given $5, $10, $20. That's what's going to fund this thing.
Sabrina had a question. We need to do something about these mail drop tickets. And I believe she's talking about the fact that there's now a push to give speeding tickets. Tell me if I'm wrong, Sabrina, because I'm not sure I know what that is. The push to give speeding tickets via
the flock cameras.
Because that's another thing that, we need to talk about is we don't have liberty, obviously, if we have an eye in the sky who's watching you, right?
Exactly.
It's a great Alan Parsons song, and I do like the song, but I don't think any of us want that. So
no, I have 5 primary areas of concern or focus in this campaign. We're calling for Oklahomans to rise. And so we're going to be doing these Oklahoma Rising events across the state, which we can talk about later. But, I want us to rise in health. I want us to rise in our education, obviously. I want us to rise in individual prosperity by removing those regulations and tax burdens. And I want to rise in personal property protection. And I want to rise in data security. So these are the 5 big general areas where I'm focusing on. There's lots of subheadings under that, each one of those. But data security is one of my top 5 areas of focus, because we're in a technological age like never before in history, and things are progressing so rapidly on a daily basis. Now with AI, it's just lights. It's just so fast how things are progressing. And of course, we have to talk about what we want to do with data centers and these kinds of things coming in to help support that industry. But when it comes to protecting individual identity, that's going to be so important, even more in the days to come. We looked at Senate Bill 224 this last year that dealt with collection of data on children from kindergarten through the workforce on into oblivion. We're just going to continue collecting data. And they justified it by modifying the bill, saying we're not collecting individualized data, it's aggregate data. But there was no clarity on who would be collecting it and where it would go and who it could be sold to and when they would stop collecting it. It is just too open-ended. We don't want government collecting individual data on us. Data is gold. Just ask Amazon or Google.
Yeah.
So that's how they control everyone. And so we are very leery. I want to protect my data, my security. You know, we were talking about VPNs earlier, you know, just not being tracked in any way, shape, or form. And so when we talk about flock cameras and these license plate readers, man, it's a big problem. And I don't even agree with why this got started in Oklahoma in the first place. It was justified to determine who had vehicle insurance.
Uninsured, let's be specific, uninsured motorist
Right.
insurance.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't know exactly what kind of data they are collecting when they scan those license plates. I believe it's far more than just the license plate.
We know it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Yeah, we know for a
I
fact.
spoke with Sheriff Tommy Johnson's office, and they were talking about a recent incident where they captured some thieves. They were seen to be driving a truck and the only description they had was the color of the truck, and there was a dent in the right rear fender. Like, well, good luck finding that. But they were able to take that limited amount of data, put it in their system, and find that truck. So yeah, they're collecting more than just the license plate number. And then, of course,
and let me guess, Sheriff Johnson was all good with that because, yay, we caught some thieves.
well, that's the issue: is how does this support law enforcement? And I'd love to get your feedback on this, Jenny, because here's what I've been saying. Actually, this is something that Senator Hamilton brought up to me, and it's like hard to argue with it. If my daughter was abducted, if my daughter was kidnapped, I would want to do anything possible to find and rescue her. So if we have cameras I would say turn on every camera in the state and find my daughter right now. You know, that's coming from the heart of a father.
That's why you can't ask me that question, because I wouldn't say that, because there isn't a tension between personal privacy. Again, we go back to the Constitution of the United States, our 5 and 6, the amendments 5 and 6 that
Right.
deal with those things. And there is no tension between the government and personal privacy rights. There are only personal privacy rights. So it doesn't matter what they think about it. And I'm sorry that we do have things that happen that can be tragic, but those aren't an excuse to remove the personal liberty rights, because my body is my personal property. I mean, you can't mess with that. It's a constitution. I know we don't like the Constitution, but that doesn't mean it's invalid. So, you know, there is no tension there. They legitimately, constitutionally cannot be doing it. And I don't like Senator Hamilton's argument, and I don't like Who's running for, why am I having a brain? He's running for, he's a trooper running for
Weaver.
lieutenant governor.
Yeah, Weaver.
Weaver, thank you. Senator Weaver. I mean, they all have the same thing. Well, but if your child was, okay, but if the world was hit by a giant meteor, I mean, we've got to stop the if then stuff. I mean, there isn't an if there. It's just, we don't do that, period, end of discussion. And every single time a state entity is sued by an individual for the protection of their individual personal liberty rights, they win every time.
Well, and I'd go one farther, Jenny, not necessarily on that, but like they sell you all this technology, Jake, in one way or another. Like, let's say, like the example with the flock cameras, Find My Daughter deal. They say, yeah, we could do that, but they don't tell. So they sell you the good part that the good ability or the good thing that could possibly come. They don't tell you about the 1,000 other data parameters that the private company itself collects through the entire process and sells or does whatever that, let's say, the sheriff's office or the state doesn't even have access to. And I have proof of that with my personal fight with the city of Edmond over a smart meter, where I refused a smart meter. There was a whole big deal. Yeah. They finally disclosed to me that hey, we only collect these 4 or 5, these 10 different data parameters. So I actually got them to admit that meter itself actually collects 200 some other pieces of data that they only have access to, like 10 of them.
Wow.
So to me, there's an entire underbelly of surveillance and tyranny attached to the good that they try to sell in all of these things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's connected to something I've said a lot. And I said this during COVID because of the government's effort to protect us. That we don't need or want the government to protect us. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment. We want to, and we should, trust in God over government. And I also say that it's not the government's job to love you. That the law is black and white, and we don't need the government coming in to love us or protect us. But this is often used. And I like to bring up this example of the daughter being abducted and the security cameras because of that, because I believe that is usually the arguments for a lot of things, like you just brought up, Michael, even the automated thermostats and all the different ways that we collect data and try to help people. And so, I can't disagree with you, Jenny, in that argument that we have to prioritize the individual liberty and protection, even above safety. I mean, that's the point of Benjamin Franklin, right? That he who'd give up the essential liberty for a little temporary safety is deserving of neither liberty or safety, or security. So, in the end, you cannot justify the violation of one's individual rights in the name of love or protection. And I think that's the point. And so now the question right now, I guess, since we have these flock cameras, and of course, Flock is a brand, these license plate readers.
Yes, that's correct.
They're already in so many places. And so I would like to see more local accountability like we saw in Logan County. And I don't know all the details there, but from what I heard, they were able to move their local officials to remove some flock cameras or license plate readers.
DOT did it, actually.
Who did?
DOT.
But wasn't that due to the local pressure there?
It was, but the government wouldn't do it. So they went to DOT because it's DOT's rules and regulations. So you can't have anything on the side of the highway. And so they had to get DOT to use their rules and regulations to do what I think the Guthrie City Council wouldn't do. Now, I mean, check me up on that. I did want to point out, though, because you've got a couple of comments, questions that I think that we need to get to. What is your plan for education since it's a hot topic as we're the last in the nation.
It's a hot topic. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. And then the follow-up is the hot topic. What are your thoughts on what's happening to Ryan Walters? And she's got a good question. Are you prepared to be able to fight the establishment that's so clearly fighting leaders like Ryan? So give us the first and then hit us with the second.
Yeah. So education, obviously there are layers and layers and layers that are contributing to our broken education system. There's no doubt, we can all agree it's broken. We need change. And so that's why it's one of my top 5 priorities in my campaign. So where do we start? Well, you know, I've been saying 2 areas that I think are good starting places is administrative bloat. You know, the massive amount of money that's going towards administration to the over 500 superintendents across the state, rather than going to the classroom. And this last session, there was an attempt to pass a bill that would require 65% of appropriated educational funding to go to the classroom. 65%. Sounds reasonable. It didn't get through. There was no way that was going. So they had to take it back, chop it down. They got it to 50%. Can we get 50% of educational funding going to the classroom? And they could not get that through either. So I think that
yet there's superintendents that make more than the government and even more than the president of the United States.
Right. We have four superintendents in the state of Oklahoma with these massive school districts that make over $400,000. And I believe the number is 17 superintendents that make $250,000. And here's what I've been saying. Hey, you know what? If they're producing blue ribbon A+ schools, they're not really going to hear much complaint. Yeah, that's a massive amount of money, but if it's producing results, maybe it's working, but it's not working. They're producing failing schools and kids who can't read. So why are we paying them this massive amount of money? I spoke to a superintendent last night who said, you know what? Come and you try to do one of the supervise these schools and see how much you think it's worth. I get it. It's a hard job, you know, and I think the root issue is more of a cultural issue with the brokenness of our families and also the degradation of our physical health and mental health that's now being pushed into the classroom. So there's layers there that won't all be solved in the classroom. But that leads to my next point. We have to empower teachers to actually have authority in their own classroom, to remove unruly students, because we have massive amount of students coming to school that are highly dysregulated, full of trauma, coming from broken homes. Mom and dad just got arrested last night. How are they going to sit and learn? We've got to talk about how to deal with that. And I'm not a fan. I'm not pushing for wraparound services or social emotional learning or the school trying to be all things to the kids and co-parenting. You know, I always say I love Moms for Liberty slogan of we don't co-parent with the government. So we need to prioritize the authority of the parents, and we need to give teachers authority in the classroom to remove unruly students so they can teach to those who are there to learn and who are able to learn. Now, there needs to be a conversation about what to do with those students. They need to be sent home if they can't work in this environment. That's no longer the school's responsibility. Okay? So the school needs to be focusing on education. Right now, even teachers are distracted. Nobody's focusing on education. So we need to get the focus back on that and give teachers power over their own classroom without administrative pushback.
How do you put the focus back on education?
It's not that hard. This is one area where I agree with some of Ryan Walters' moves. And people ask me all the time, it's the obligatory question, where do you stand with Ryan Walters? Well, I agree with a lot of what Ryan Walters has done. I don't agree with a lot of the ways he's done them. But part of improving education is removing distractions in the classroom. So I don't want LGBTQ flags flying in the classroom. I don't want an agenda there in the classroom where they're wanting to teach kids about being gender fluid rather than learning the essentials. So I agree with that push to remove all of that and remove teachers who have that agenda. Now, how you go about that is important. I always bring up the issue of the Bible mandate. When the Bible mandate first came out, I was as concerned as anybody, even being an ordained pastor, a Bible believing man, a Bible preaching man. I was concerned with that because the rules weren't released. We didn't know what this meant. And there was this upheaval and chaos around this Bible mandate. Well, when the rules came out, it was clear. You cannot teach religion. You cannot teach doctrine. You can only teach the historical connection to the founding of our nation. And I said, well, I'm good with that. I actually love that. I just don't want teachers teaching doctrine to students. And nobody else does either. That's not the place for that in the classroom. But here's the thing. If Ryan Walters would have released the rules along with that mandate, there would have been far less concern, especially among other Republicans. So why didn't he? I don't know why he didn't. Maybe it was to get a little bit of upheaval and more attention. But that is one example I bring out about I agreed with what he did, but I really disagree with how he did it. And so that is one way we can improve focus in the classroom, is giving teachers the ability to remove unruly students. We teach to the ones who are there able to learn, who are there to learn, and we remove unnecessary distractions like the other agendas that are there in the classroom.
Okay, you missed the biggest one.
Okay,
Screens have to go.
that's good. Yeah,
Screens have to go, because if you want to talk about distraction, the distraction of the unruly kid isn't as bad as the distraction of the screen. Kids don't learn properly during using screens. It's been shown over and over again that your brain really only processes information when you're hearing and writing and watching.
Yeah.
You can't do that on a computer. It's all done this way. Screens have got to go. That's really the only way. Catherine Ann says, if you can't speak English, you probably won't do well in an English speaking school.
That's it. Yeah.
It's time to be honest about illegal immigration in our state. Tulsa school members post alerts in English and Spanish. Why?
Wow. Well, I will, with the screen argument, our daughter went to a local school here, and I was up there constantly because with complaints, because they would teach half a class period, and the rest of the class period they would give them their Chromebooks to just babysit. And I would go there, listen, my daughter's not coming here to sit and play games on a Chromebook. And so we actually took the initiative as parents and said, our daughter will not get a Chromebook.
Right.
Do not give her a Chromebook. And so this is one example where a parent can actually come in there and determine what is going to happen with their kid. So maybe, can it happen at the government level? Yes. But honestly, I was not a fan of the no cell phones in schools, because I don't want it coming from the state government. I want teachers to say, you know what?
Wait, Jake. It was Ali Seifert or Kristen Thompson. I'm sorry. Kristen Thompson was clear that there's plenty of local control because the local school district gets to make up their own policy.
Right.
That was dictated by the state. I hate to interrupt you, but we're getting along, and Julie says, waiting to hear his thoughts on what's happened to Ryan Walters.
Here's where I'm at with Ryan Walters is I want to wait until all of the investigation is done. You know, obviously the argument is there that this could be a witch hunt because of all of the history and all the attempts to undermine his authority and get him out. So that's where my tendency is to say, I feel like this is more of the same pattern we've seen over the last 2 years, but I'm not going to make a judgment on this until all of the investigation is complete. So, that's, I think, wise to do that. I haven't really commented much on social media about it because of that. There's a lot of assumptions. That, to be honest and transparent, is my assumption, is I feel like this is more of the same as a setup. But at the same time, I'm withholding judgment until we see all of the investigation complete.
Okay, well, since we all have to kind of get off early today, I do want to take the opportunity for you to talk a little bit about your what you're doing with these.
Yeah.
Is it Rise?
Oklahoma Rising is
Okay.
what we're calling it. Yeah. And I'll just say this, it really was inspired by a meme that circulated a few years ago. And if you remember it, you may have seen it. It's a picture of these fat politicians sitting there with their cigars and bourbon playing a game. And they have this board game out in front of them.
Happened on the last day of the legislative cycle, too, just to let you know. But go ahead.
I missed the first part of what you said.
I said that happened on the last day of the legislative cycle, particularly in the Senate, but also in the House, apparently.
Yeah, right. So these politicians in this meme are playing this board game, and then you look closer, and the board is sitting on the backs of people who are bent over. And the caption says, "As soon as the people stand up, the game is over." And I just love that. And this is what we're calling the people to do, is to rise, to step up, to be the authority. Like I just mentioned with my daughter in the public school who's given a Chromebook, you know, I went out there and said, no, my daughter will not get a Chromebook. It's going to take action on the part of the people to step up and intervene. And so we're calling the people to rise up. We're going into communities, working with local pastors and community leaders to come together and call the people to step up and exercise their God-given rights. And we're calling this Oklahoma Rising. The first one is in Chickasha, September 6th. And we are organizing volunteers to go out and door knock and invite people out. We're not just looking for top tier registered Republicans. We want everybody out. And we're going to help new people get registered. We're going to educate them on what is possible whenever the people get involved. And so it's going to be an exciting time. We're going to have other events out there associated with this, some car shows, and well, we have a lot of ideas, but we'll announce all that later. But it's a month away in Chickasha, and then we're going to replicate that around the state. So we have about 12 of those planned. I'm doing those along with small meetings at GOP groups and OK2A groups and even unlabeled groups, just like I did last night in Watauga. It was just a group of people who wanted to get together and talk to me. So I'm happy to do that. So you can reach me at info@jakemerrickforgovernor.com, info@jakemerrickforgovernor.com. And you can just go to my website too, jakemerrickforgovernor.com, and check out my policies and reach out to me if you're interested in connecting.
Okay, before we get off of here, we had some really great comments, and I know we're running late, and I'm sorry, guys.
I'm good.
Shows you the superintendent, school board, and teachers unions associations have too much power in our legislature, and would remove one of their complaints, low teacher pay, to distract from the public corruption in schools. So there was that one. And Shelley agrees that we need to have more authority in the classroom. With the daughter being abducted scenario, there's no talk of loosing community response. This was the best comment. I'm sorry. I love all my commenters. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pick favorites, but this one today is a great one. There's no talk of loosing community response. The government strips the people of that responsibility with their fix. And then we're left with an over-reliance on cameras. In the end, abductions will rise because you don't have community. I mean, we're not allowed to go out and take care of it ourselves. The police have to handle it. And then if we don't do it properly, we can be arrested by the police. That's a huge problem. And I am so grateful to you, Robert, today for saying that.
That is great.
Dana says, remove all the fluff that distracts from educating children, SEL, MTSS, PBIS, blah, 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 blah. Remove unions from having space in schools. Yeah. And here's another good one. Robert is like on fire today. Separation of church and state. And this is, I agree with this 150 million %. Separation of church and state is no longer the problem. It's now more separation of state from church.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly what's going on. Yeah.
Exactly what's going on. And Shelley says, we really need to get back to the little red schoolhouse if we're going to have education under government. So many skills learned in a K-12 classroom, and that's exactly correct. Oh, and Stephanie wants to remind everybody you're going to be at Liberty Church in Yukon Sunday, August 14th at 4:00. So that will be not this Sunday, but next. No, 2 Sundays from now. 2 Sundays from now. And there was one other one that was a good comment. Let me see if I can find that. I think it was another one by Earl's daughter. Earl's daughter and Robert Scott are like fighting it out today. No, I guess I've missed it someplace. Okay, any last things before we get off this morning? And again, I'm sorry, guys, that we're having to get off early today. And I hope we haven't shorted you any time, Jake.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I just want to end with saying I think you need to own the white hair as Jenny White. I think you need to own it.
Okay, man.
Since I'm such a hair expert.
You and my husband are definitely hair club for men.
I really appreciate you guys and your time today.
No, thank you so much for being with us, Jake. We really do appreciate you. And one more time, I'm going to throw this up on the screen. info@jakemerrickforgovernor.com. If you want to get in touch with Jake, info@jakemerrickforgovernor.com. Thanks again, Jake. We will, I'm sure, talk to you again in the future. We've got quite a bit of time until the election. So we'll have a chance to give you, well, this is another one. Sorry. Workforce development has to go. It's not for the people. And that was, you mentioned that earlier, but absolutely. Exactly. All right. Thanks so much for being with us, Jake. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Michael. All right.
Bye-bye.
God bless you guys.
You too. All right. We are going to have to sign off early. Any last thoughts, Michael?
No, I know you weren't as excited about Jake leaving the show and maybe having even a larger impact with the show over time. But I think it's fantastic. I think he lines up with 95% of everything that I would line up with for sure. I think maybe one clarifying thing for me is on that education side. I'd like to see him drill down and not just say education, we have to educate better. I think it needs to just come down to the word academics. We want academics taught, not all the program. He did mention that all the other little programs.
Michael Grande for Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really what it comes down to. Can these kids read and write? And that's another thing. You want to attract people from all over the world to Oklahoma and massively just increase the amount of money and the amount of value that's provided here in Oklahoma. You teach kids and you're in the top 5 of academics in the world, then you literally will have people from all over the world moving to Oklahoma because our academics, we produce kids with results. And if you got to pay superintendent, $500,000 to get that. Thanks, Lisa. You got to pay a superintendent, but if the superintendent is producing kids at like a 95% reading and math, level of proficiency, that's worth it. That's worth it.
I agree. And I do think we do need to talk about academics and not education. That's an excellent point, Michael. We haven't, I don't think, hit that before. And I think that's perfect. That's 100%. It's about academics.
Yeah.
And you can't get them on a Chromebook. I'm telling you.
Maybe a tough question that we maybe want to, I don't know if we want to, kind of pursue this, but also, we know the impact of sports in schools on academics and on all that stuff too. And how we feel, and our audience kind of knows about that too. But that's another major issue. Yeah. And think of the amount of money that goes into those programs that aren't going into the classrooms also. Yeah.
No, we actually literally have property taxes taken from us so we can turn on the lights on Friday night. And that's wrong. Yet we've been propagandized to think that the only reason kids need to go to, because I had homeschool parents who were like, well, we're putting our kids in Edmond North because they have a soccer program, or they have, and this is the only way we're going to get. Well, until we quit worrying about sport for anything, any reason, then our academics are going to suffer. So it's just the way it is. Okay.
Well, and I like the fact that Jake wants people to be more responsible, because that's what we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we're responsible for ourselves. No one else is responsible for us. No one else is coming to save us. No one else is, going to take action and do things, the best way on our behalf. So, I mean, I like the fact that, we need to become more responsible in that education, in our local communities, things like that. And, I think maybe we just need an activator, somebody like Jake that is constantly right at the top. Hey, you're just as much a part of this as I am, kind of mentality. Yeah.
Girl, you on fire today.
Hey, that's
you
a good
on fire. Oh my goodness.
Friday night rights.
I love that. Friday night rights.
Well, Jenny, think about if you had a community that was that cohesive about your rights in your
yeah.
compared to the stats at the last, Thunder game or whatever.
Can you imagine that? Your community, instead of filing into the stands on Friday night to watch football, were filing into the stands to figure out how they could get themselves more rights and get the government put back in their place. Wouldn't that be the best thing ever?
Oh, yeah.
But that's, it's just crazy. That's too hard. I don't want to do that. I want to go eat popcorn and have a beer and watch my kid play football. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, but that's where we are. People literally do not care as much about their liberty as they do about what happens on the football field or the soccer field or on the basketball court or fill in the blank. It's pathetic. Sorry.
Right.
I think
we had a lot of people. Okay. So we're going to have Jake on again with a little more extended time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, but again, like I said, we've got plenty of time. So it's not like this is his last appearance on the Rope Report. It's not going to happen, but it's just one of those days where, too many things came together to kind of fight the, oh, well, we can stay on until we get sick of talking thing that we usually do. So we just didn't have that today with too many things going on. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Please have a safe and wonderful weekend. We will not have a show next week. I'm going to be gone. So, and I think, Michael, you had some other stuff to do. So we're just going to kind of vacation it, and I'll stick in some replays so that you don't lose the habit of tuning in 9 a.m. on Wednesday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. So I will make sure we have something to watch in there. But then we'll be right back the week after that. And I think we've got Charles Key Part 2 with the Oklahoma City bombing coming in when we get back on that next Wednesday, which will be the 13th. So don't miss that. And then on that next Friday, we'll have John Stanley come on. He actually has not been commenting today. I hope John's okay. Talking about RFID technology and EID technology for their wanting to make ranchers put RFID chips on cattle. And I think that's a big, there is a show replay. It's okay. We'll be, all right, everybody, take care. Have a wonderful weekend. And we will see you again in you as well, Terry. Thank you so much for your efforts as well. Okay, 2A. So we will talk to everybody soon. Oh, I'm getting no audio. Oh, well, at least we have closed captioning. All right, everybody have a great weekend. We will see you again in 1 week, but we will have rope replays for next week. So tune in then, and we'll see you again later on. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.